which Baron that was. Crepo did join us because we were still watching the other game of rounding up the other game. And when we looked over, it looked like Splyce had everything in their hands straight from the beginning. They were building up a good lead thanks to Trashy.
Yeah, Trashy had a nice bit of work here in the early game. It was 3-0. I was actually, I stole that from a football cast. Never mind. You guys don't get the joke. It was 3-0 by like 10 minutes 30. So I thought this would be a really quick, clean game by Splyce. You know, as we expected, you know, outranking Giants in terms of like priority here in the league. But then suddenly things started going wrong. And it was actually Trashy kind of spiraling downwards, you know, where first he was making clean ganks, he was overextending, not really synergizing well with his team.
Let's first take a look at what he did well, Trashy, because that's something we've seen from a couple of games from Splyce already. They can get that early lead thanks to his movements.
Yeah, just early game, he just had a couple of clean ganks here, just isolate Smitty on this replay. Later on, I think there was a phase in the mid lane, and then quite a few phases later, like here, yeah, this is one of the key plays. In the first 3 kills, Trashy was involved in all of them, 1-0 and 2 is what his score was after these 3 kills that went down. He just seemed to be everywhere on the map, and Maxlore couldn't match the pacing despite having like the higher tempo jungler on Nidalee. But then it started falling. There was this knock-up phase where Sencux's fish did not connect, you know, not synergistic, not on the same page.
Yeah, and honestly, mid lane had a different effect. As we look forward towards the Baron, you know, Vedis was talking about this. This is one of these setups where Giants just get boxed in. They weren't really anticipating the TP coming from top lane from Wunder, so they don't bail out of the play fast enough.
And this is where, honestly, Knight has to go full Hodor and just cut off the exit and just get out of that entire phase here, because they just linger around too much. They stayed for the Baron. They get it, but they pay the price.
So experts, every time we saw either team going to Baron in these later stages of the game, you guys went, well, this might be a throw. This might be a throw. So, I mean, is there anything to keep that from happening when you are one of these two teams? Or what is the safest, lowest risk approach?
I mean, the safest one is not doing Baron, obviously, but if it's so easy because, like, oh, I can't believe they've done Baron and they threw the game when they get contested. But then there's other games that went on earlier in the arena here today as well. It was like, oh, they just burned down Baron and the other team didn't even contest, because everybody kind of relies on that safety check. You know, when you have you clear the enemy vision out, you're like, okay, now we're going to bait to make sure that they're not contesting. And then enemies like, yeah, the first 10 seconds after vision is clear, they'll never do Baron. They'll be setting up a bait. And it's kind of the gentleman's agreement. But if somebody steps out of that mold, just instantly starts Baron, suddenly you've lost it and you've thrown the game. So you look silly either way. I do think there was a couple poor Baron attempts this game without the necessary vision. And Maxlore, especially for Giants, like, he was trying to peel on Nidalee in some of these fights.
Yeah, and the problem is we look at Giants, you know, warming up for the second game in this best of 2 is...
What a warm-up.
I was going to say, I say warming up, at least
it.
talking. The lights are bright here, and there's not a lot of light.
There's no jumping jack. I have a better view here, but there's no jumping jacks going on, so they're actually not working.
That's fair. Poor choice of words, perhaps, on that one. I was going to say, sometimes you see a team start a bait, but they actually engage the Baron, and Giants did that a couple of times. So it's like you stick around too long before you pull away from the play and actually look for the fight, and by that point you're engaged.
Yeah, the bait that turns into a question, can we finish this Baron? And the answer is yeah, but we'll die for it.
Yeah,
and it's at 6k, and you're like, oh, we can go for it.
It swung the momentum, and then in the end, Splyce also was victorious in, well, one of the final fights. They just got the upper hand in more and more of these fights. There also was a quadra kill involved there, so I believe, oh, this is the one, actually. There we go.
We happen to have a replay of this play.
Magic.
Yeah.
What a surprise here. But yeah, this is the fight where Kobbe eventually picks up a quadra kill. MIkyx has a really good hook timing here on the Zonias. While MIkyx looked a little silly earlier in the game, you know, going for a lot of these max range hooks, and people undoubtedly in Twitch chat would be like, aha, boosted Thresh, etc. He was actually very fundamental to the victory of a lot of these one-team fights by Splyce. I've seen him on multiple occasions flash and flay backwards, even when he was as low as 20% health. He would still go in knowing that the ensuing fight would be won by his team.
Yep, and Splyce won that ensuing team fight and won the game. Our player of the game in this one was Sencux. It's quite funny. We have the telestrator here. It's just the areas next to us, and sometimes we get player cams up there. So we just had Sencux's face for the entirety of the game. Not a lot of emotion, but he was player of the game, and he was a person that we were asking questions about coming into the season as not really delivering in the spring split. But here's a game that he did do very well in Fizz.
He did very well in a lot of the key fights. However, we still have to criticize his early laning phase.
Yeah.
You know, the Fizz into Azir is a skill matchup, regardless of any external factors. Going down 40 CS very early and then keeping at a steady 40 CS down is something that can't happen. But then he bought MIkyx, and suddenly the world was great again.
Suddenly it's all great. You get a quadra kill, or, a bunch of kills in the fight. I'm glad for Splyce's sake that they, the growth they showed over the last few weeks, talking about how, their bottom lane is starting to step up a little bit. Wunder was settling. I'm glad to see that they can still rely on Sencux in certain games. I still think this is probably the first great performance with air quotes that we've seen from him this split, so there's still room for him to grow, looking to stamp his name in the mids.
I don't think Splyce, with their current aspirations, shouldn't be struggling against the Giants lineup like this. However, the old Splyce would have not crawled out of the deficit of this game, and that is with the addition of MIkyx and just better team play, something that they can do when they do get behind against weaker teams. They can get back.
I mean, in the standings, they were neck and neck, and I don't actually think that Giants had a horrible performance in this one either. No. I mean, even Sonstar had some great movements, but it wasn't the end Splyce that was stronger. But I do feel like they can get a one-on-one on the board. But Splyce is just one win shy of an extra 3 points in the standings and a jump into 4th place. We'll see you back here in just a few minutes.